Hi there, my name is Allie Hurlburt, and this is the first video in Christchurch Edmonton's series, Won't You Be My Neighbor, where we're going to be spending the next few weeks talking about the ministry and the message and kind of the joy and friendliness of Fred Rogers. Mr. Rogers, who one of my favorite priests calls the most influential theologian of the 20th century. Mr. Rogers, you likely know from the television show that we all loved and watched on PBS when we were kids. What you may not know is that Fred Rogers was also an ordained Presbyterian minister. And his calling was not to work in a church, but to work on television, to work with children, to work putting a different message of kindness, of neighborliness, and acceptance out into the world. Fred Rogers says that he was watching TV and saw the way that people treated each other and was horrified that there's people smashing pies in each other's faces, calling each other names, demeaning each other, treating each other as less than, and then laughing about it. And that those were the things that the children were expected to find funny as well. And he thought, this is not the message that I want to be out there for kids. He had experienced some of that mean treatment when he was a child and thought, well, that's awful. There needs to be an alternative out there. There needs to be something else for kids to see that models kindness, that instead of talking about the drama of hitting and punching, talks about the drama of children's own hearts and the emotions that they go through. A show where children are valued and respected and seen and heard, where kindness is promoted, where difficult topics are tackled head on in ways that children can understand, but trusting that kids already are pretty clued in to what's going on around them. So the real Mr. Rogers never preached. The show wasn't a Christian show explicitly. He never mentioned God on his show, but in many ways he didn't have to, because he embodied that gospel of loving your neighbor, of being open to each other, of being big-hearted, of putting other people before you, kindness and love. There's a phrase that's apparently from St. Francis of Assisi that likes to go around that says, preach the gospel at all times, if necessary, use words. Now, there's lots of people who use words to preach the gospel, and it's not that that's unimportant, but sharing the love of Jesus with other people isn't just about, it's certainly not about standing on a corner with a bullhorn and yelling at people or telling them that what they're doing is wrong. But it isn't even just about communicating our beliefs in a clear and accessible way or in a way that matters to people who hear them. It's also about being Jesus people, about embodying that gospel and living that love first and foremost out in the world with our neighbors. And the words are always going to come secondary to that point of connection, that point of human connection that is something that we can experience with all of our neighbors. So in this first short video here, I want to talk a little bit about diversity in the neighborhood, or wanting to have a neighbor just like you, as Mr. Rogers says. I grew up in a neighborhood that was 95% white. And when my dad was selling our first childhood home and moving somewhere else in the neighborhood, one of the neighbors actually approached him. This would have been in the, late 80s, early 90s, and said, quietly, I certainly hope that you're not going to consider selling that house to a black family. And my dad was kind of shocked and blinked and said, well, so-and-so down the block whose children babysit my kids, who is a great neighbor, he's black. And they kind of just both backed away from each other, and the topic was closed. But I think sometimes we forget. We think we live in Canada, it's multicultural. We don't like to think of the ways that sometimes our neighborhoods have been shaped by forces of exclusion, by racism, by how much money people have, that our neighborhoods aren't always as friendly as they should be. They aren't embodying that kind of welcome that Jesus teaches us to have. I now live in a much more diverse neighborhood, Oliver, where Christchurch is located. It's just off the city center in Edmonton. And we have, two different populations. We have a lot of seniors who are living in the condo towers around here. And then we also have kind of a growing number of young families who are often in the smaller buildings, the rentals, living around. And the young families are quite diverse. My daughter goes to kindergarten where she is one of 3 white kids in the class. But that doesn't necessarily mean that welcome is present. And so I wanted to tell you a story about learning to be a better neighbor in Oliver. When my daughter was little, I walked everywhere, and I would walk her in a stroller in front of me. So she is seeing what I'm seeing, but she can't see me. And as I walked around, I'm very friendly, I'm very chatty, and I would say hi to a lot of people. And then one day I got this nudge that in retrospect, really feels like something God was telling me I needed to take a little look at. I got this nudge to say, who are you saying hello to? And I looked and I saw, I always say hello to the friendly looking kind of white grandmas and grandpas who live in the neighborhood. Because I know that they'll want me to say hi. I know that they'll smile at my kid. It's an easy way to say hello. But what I realized was that I wasn't always saying hello to people who didn't look like me. That I was being, not intentionally racist, but certainly racist in the way that I was interacting with my neighbors. And I realized that my daughter, who's sitting in front of me, she doesn't know that everything that's coming back to us from the people we walk past is being driven by what I'm doing. So I say hello to somebody who looks like her grandfather, and he says hello right back. And what she sees is, oh, this person smiles at me. This person acknowledges me. But if I didn't say hello to somebody from another race, if I didn't say hello to somebody who looked homeless, if I didn't say hello to somebody who was wearing a niqab, then she sees that, oh, these people don't say hi to me. The energy that I was putting out, the welcome that I was putting out, was driving the welcome that she felt coming back to her. And I was unconsciously shaping that in a way that probably carried more of that exclusionary mindset that I thought I had escaped. And it was a really humbling and embarrassing moment for me. And so I started saying hello to absolutely everybody I walked past. Just for, I don't say hello to absolutely everybody anymore if they look like they don't want to say hello, but to kind of reset, I said hello to absolutely everybody. And what I found, which I don't think will surprise anyone, was that the more people I said hello to, the more people I got warm responses back from. That almost everybody in the neighborhood wants to be seen, wants to be acknowledged, wants to feel welcome. And that by expanding that welcome, I was becoming more of a part of my full neighborhood, of everything in my neighborhood, of all the people in my neighborhood. I wasn't holding myself separate and losing out on so many of my neighbors who I'm increasingly blessed to know. So one of the things that really stood out to me from Mr. Rogers when thinking about this talk was that he says in that opening song, I've always wanted to have a neighbor just like you, just as you are. You are the neighbor that I want to have. Maya Angelou in an interview with Oprah said that there's some questions that everybody's always walking around asking the world. And it's, do you see me? Do you care that I'm here? And am I enough for you as I am? Or do you need me to be better in some way or different in some way? Do you see me? Do you care? Do you need me or want me to be different? And Mr. Rogers is, an absolute genius at welcoming people as they are. It's the directness and simplicity of it is a real gift of his, I think. And he immediately, always in those shows says, yes, I see you. Hi, hello. Yes, I care that you're here. Welcome. I'm happy that you're here. And I like you just the way you are. I've always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. This is not about saying, well, we're all the same, or I don't see difference, or, oh, I'm colorblind. It's about saying, I see you. I see you in your full humanity, in everything that you bring to the table. And yes, I'm glad that you're here. I care that you're here, and I'm happy that you are here just as you are. I don't want you to be different. I'm not looking at you thinking, is this person a part of my neighborhood? I'm saying, I'd love to welcome you. I'd love to know more about you. So this week, I thought a way to work on bringing Christ's love into our neighborhoods, of kind of integrating our faith into our daily life, and in being a bit more like Fred Rogers every week, would be to look at your neighbors. See if you're communicating to your neighbors that you see them, that you care, and that you accept them as they are. That might mean nodding at people from 6 feet away these days, absolutely, or saying hi as you go past your neighbors. It might mean looking at who's in my neighborhood. Can I read up? Can I find some demographics? Do I even know who my neighbors are? It might mean figuring out who your neighbors are and finding a way to show them that you see them and you care. So a lot of my neighbors right now are Muslim. A lot of my daughter's friends at school are Muslim, and the mothers that I'm connecting with through her school are Muslim. So one of the things that really matters in saying, hi, I see you, I care, is learning about some basics of Muslim faith. In the same way that I love it when somebody tells me Happy Easter or Merry Christmas. It matters to learn, okay, if your neighbors are Jewish, how do I wish them a happy Passover? So right now, it is Ramadan, has just started. Ramadan is a time of fasting that I think from the outside often sounds like, oof, that must be a tough time to come up to. But what I've learned the more I get to know Muslim men and women is that many of them, or most of them that I've encountered, really look forward to Ramadan and really treasure and enjoy it. And so the thing that you can say if you have a Muslim neighbor that you want to acknowledge is to say, Ramadan Mubarak. Ramadan Mubarak. You just say it once. I'm just repeating it. Or if you don't in the moment remember Mubarak, which means happy or blessed, you can say, have a happy Ramadan or happy Ramadan. Because it is, obviously an intense time of fasting, but also quite a joyful time. So I think that's our starting point for this week. It can start with waving. It can start by saying, hi, I see you. It can start by saying Ramadan Mubarak. It can start with a nod or a really good smize behind your mask. And as we move along, we'll take it from there. So please join us on Sunday mornings for sermons based around themes in Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And then either Sue or I will see you every Wednesday here on YouTube to talk about Mr. Rogers, the patron saint of neighborliness, some more.